Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. My name's Tom, and I'm going to be doing a live stream about how to transition from working in music, doing whether it's audio production or mixing or writing music, performing music, how to go from that path to working on film and TV projects. So we're going to just jump right in here. First, I just want to I'm going to pick a member to give a shout out to. Let's see. But like members have been like the biggest thing for my channel. We have a members only Discord, so that's been growing exponentially and the discussion on there has been really good. So I just want to, yes, okay. Here's the member I'm going to pick on today. Paul, I might pronounce this wrong. Bohak. Tell me how to pronounce your last name, Paul. He's been really providing a lot of like discussion in our Discord, so I just want to give him a shout out. So thank you, Paul, and thanks to all members. But what we're going to talk about today is, here's kind of the outline. So it's the music to post pipeline, and when I say post, I really mean audio post-production for film and TV projects, and web stuff too, commercials, like anything with a visual component. You might even say that includes things like Audible projects, audiobooks, or probably, podcasts. Some podcasts are more than just, people talking into an SM7B for 3 hours. Some of them have sound effects and music, and they're more than just discussions. So, so good morning to everybody. Just go through the chat real quick. I'm getting over the flu, so if my voice is a little extra raspy, that's why. Paul says, what if the Earth is flat and NASA lied about being to the moon? What if the chicken came first before the egg? What if we didn't have internet? Would we discuss via smoke? I think that'd be great. It'd be great. I would be super interested in going back like 400 years and just living to live instead of living to make money. And he says, I'm waiting on the mental health part. We'll get to that. So that's something that, mental health is something that I've been kind of lax on. And yeah, you get burnt out on stuff, you get frustrated. So I'm trying to be more empathetic and less just, get the job done at any cost. So, okay, so music to post pipeline. A lot of us, me included, but you'll find a huge cross-section of people who work in audio post-production actually started out doing music. You can see I've got, oops, wrong side. I got a bass guitar behind me from my buddy Shep. I have guitars on the walls. I've got drums, like I've got kazoos and all kinds of percussion and stuff. So obviously I came from music. I went to school for music. When I was 17, 18 years old, deciding what I was going to do, I thought, I'm going to be a music producer, I'm going to be a recording engineer, I'm going to be recording famous artists across the world, I'm going to move to Los Angeles, and I'm going to get either a job at a studio or build my own studio. And I tried both things. And what really happened, the reason I titled this Shattered Dreams, is because you get to the reality of the music industry, and it's really tough to make a decent full-time living doing music. There are people who do it, they find their lane, they develop it, they stick with it, but with streaming, especially the royalties from streaming and the proliferation of like music libraries for TV shows, and just the lowering entry level, the lowering the bar for recording gear. People can go out and spend $500 and record their own album at their house versus paying a studio a couple $100 an hour to go record an album. There are still artists who do that. They will pay for a recording engineer, they'll pay for the space, or the label will pay for that. They're going to have no problem dropping 30, 40 grand on recording some songs. But a lot of people are self-releasing, they're self-recording. So just the job market for music, for working music, as much as everybody has that as a dream, is is pretty bleak, and it has been bleak for a while. Like since I got into it, which was 2008, so a long time ago. So we did that. So the flow of career from music to audio for me was, I moved to Los Angeles. I started a studio with a business partner, like a commercial studio. It was a small one, but it's still like we paid rent on a space. We tried to get people in. We would get rappers coming in, paying $30 an hour to record stuff, or a couple singer-songwriters, or, it wasn't a big studio. Like we couldn't record full bands, but we could track an album there. But the reality of the financials was we were barely making enough to break even. So it was a high expense and not a super high amount of money coming in. So it just wasn't very profitable, and it was very stressful. It was really hit or miss. And because people can record themselves, it's just not, it's not maybe the best path to go into. And if you're watching this and you're going to college, or you're thinking about going to college, or you're finishing up college, the colleges will take your money. Whatever you want to do, the college is going to say, yeah, we'll fill your brain with education. We will prepare you for a job. And really, the preparing you for a job is for you to go work in like Guitar Center or play music at Starbucks on their PA system. Like they're not preparing you for a real job. Even the specialist schools like Full Sail, they fudge their numbers just to get you in the door and get your 200 grand that you're going to spend going to school there. So just know that when you graduate, the job market is going to be extremely difficult. It's going to be very tight, and it's going to be not impossible, but the dream of working in music is going to probably remain a dream. So let's just look at some numbers here. I actually found these on the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is probably a little small for you guys to read. The big thing I wanted to look at was job outlook from 2023 to 2033. So that's a 10-year job outlook. If you look at broadcast sound and video technicians, which would be audio post-production, but also things like, maybe working as like a film editor or doing broadcast news, like basically the whole visual side, and maybe a little bit of like music stuff, but it seems like this is mostly geared towards film and TV. But the job outlook growth is only 3%, which is as fast as average, and the number of jobs is 146,000. So it's only adding about 4,000 jobs for 10 years. So not a super great outlook for that. But if you compare that to musicians and singers, it's going to be 2% growth over the same time period, and only adding about 3,500 jobs. So slower than average growth on that. Now, if you look at film and video editors and camera operators, so this is not the sound side of the film business. It's the same as the sound side, 3%. And then but the cool thing is, we'll talk about this too, is you have these side paths you can take where you use skills that you've learned in a completely different set of jobs. And I did this. I took a 3-year break from working in the biz and worked in marketing. And actually, it was a much better fit for me at the time because steady pay, much better job growth, 8% in advertising, promotions, and marketing managers, and way more jobs added, 31,000. So you can take your media skills and apply them to like advertising, marketing, and it's a corporate type of job, but the pay can be really good, 156 grand a year. The growth is better, and it's way more stable. So all the entertainment jobs are very up and down. Okay, so prospects we talked about. Education, like I said, these film schools and audio schools will run their ads and say that they have like a 115% employment rate of graduates, and that's because they're counting terrible jobs as part of their statistics. The chances of you getting an audio or music degree and then going out into the professional world and getting a job are very low, I went to just a regular state college for music, and they told me straight up, like, dude, you are not going to be successful going out into the professional world. Just stay in education, get an education degree, teach music. Don't risk going out into the world and trying to make it for yourself. Just stay in this warm, comfy blanket of the education, monolith that we have. And their flow is very much setting up people to go from a bachelor's degree to a master's to teaching music or teaching audio or teaching film. So you have people teaching that have never done it. They've learned the educational side of it. They've read the books and they've studied and, very academically applied themselves, but they haven't gone out and risked it all and made a living doing it in any of these, film, music, broadcast, whatever. Like, you get a lot of people in these colleges who have never done anything. Or they've done small stuff. They've done, what do they call them? Theses and special projects and research projects, but they haven't gone out, packed their suitcase, moved to LA or New York, and actually made it. They've just stayed within the education bubble. So the comparison of those two is kind of the same. So that's like kind of the career/education side of the pipeline. Like, I have a music degree, a bachelor's in music, that I use those skills to transition into audio post, and there's some concepts that we'll talk about that are universal, but there's also differences between the two. So I'm just going to go through some comments real quick. Let's see. Chris says he actually went the other way. He moved from post to music. And we'll talk about that too. Audio dramas can be interesting, similar to film and TV, but without the video. Music mixing is quite a saturated market. That's from TJ. Definitely, yeah, that I found that. Like, everybody wants to mix music. Yeah, audio dramas. Brandon, yeah, that's from Brandon. Andrew says he finally woke up early enough to catch a stream. Yeah, there's been a resurgence of audio dramas just because people are listening on their phones so much. But I don't know. TJ says the market's going down. So just discussion in the comments, no real questions. If you guys have questions, please drop them. I'm going to stream for another 45 minutes, so till about 9 my time, and I'm going to sign off, and I'll make sure we get through everything. So universal concepts between like music mixing, music production, and film audio post or TV audio post. You have digital signal processing, so knowing EQ, compression, dynamics processing, routing, panning, reverb, that kind of stuff. The signal flow, this is really about signal flow. This is something that I found that music mixers can kind of struggle with, because generally with music, you're more often working in a vacuum by yourself. So if your session is a complete disaster and you just route everything through your mains, it's fine. But when you get to film, you have to be much more careful about routing things and making stems. So you need to understand signal flow, but there's definitely more involved with audio post because of the delivery of stems and different deliverables. Editing is basically the same, chopping up audio, whether it's doing timings like aligning a vocal stack by hand or changing the timing on the drums because he rushed the fill going into the break, or lining up the bass with the kick a little bit more, or just, things like basic audio editing, cutting, pasting, fades, that kind of stuff. There's automatic things that we do in music, like there's Beat Detective in Pro Tools for editing drums, and there's Warp, I think, in Logic Pro for doing timing and quantizing and stuff. We don't really do too much of that in audio post, but so basic editing chops are going to apply to both fields. Mixing, again, the concepts of mixing, signal gain, like the gain staging, is pretty universal. But the next topic, which is the distinct applications of those, can be quite different from music to film. And the basic mixing differences are that in film, you generally do less. You do less hammering stuff. You do less saturation. You use saturation very carefully in audio post. When it comes to dialogue mixing, you're dealing with stuff that has a noise floor, and you want to preserve dynamics of the human voice. So you're not slamming stuff through an LA2A or an 1176 in film, and you're not, boosting the crisp highs above like 8K as much. Like film mixing and TV mixing are a lot more broad strokes and careful versus like music mixing. You're taking stuff that raw doesn't quite sound right, and you're squeezing it and molding it to make something that sounds like everything else. So that's universal concepts. This is a good point. Automation. Brandon says coming from front of house, automation is a thing. Manual automation, like you'll probably write a vocal if you're doing front of house, but yeah, there's not a lot of that. And TJ Explorer says 95% of music mixing and mastering engineers don't know how automation works. I found that, with music, like you'll get a Pro Tools session from somebody who's done music and they're trying to do post, and all the volume is just flat lines. Or they do like the stair step thing, but there's no like fader rides, So yeah, we'll talk about more differences next. So distinct applications, like I said, film tends to be a lot more elegant about, or careful about radical EQs and heavy dynamics. There are exceptions to that, like a radio spot, a radio advertisement would be more compressed. A TV ad will be a little more compressed than a TV show. TV shows tend to have some compression, and then film obviously has like the most dynamic range, so the least amount of compression. But the kind of general rule with audio post is you don't want to hear the mixing. You're serving the purpose of the visual, you are supporting the visual. So your work should kind of, step out of the way of the performances. Obviously, you're going to get sequences where it's all about sound effects or it's all about the music being loud. And so there, the mixing can take more of a, front and center approach. But there's still probably visuals going on. So for film and TV, you are really having to balance what you want to do with what serves the visual. Whereas music, you have no visual, so you can really kind of do whatever you want. Panning, it serves the story, it serves what's on screen. You're going to keep a lot more stuff centered with film and TV mixing and do less, like on a folk song, you hard pan maybe the acoustic guitars left and right for doubles, or you might dynamically pan stuff. You do some of that in film, but it's always based on what's going on screen. For timing, sync, for example, you have the sync problem to deal with film and TV, where things have to be synced up with what's on screen. But there's also off-screen timing of stuff, timing of music coming in, things that you can't see that need to be timed out. But for music, you're really serving generally the tempo and like the beat of different instruments, like the kick and bass playing nice together. And you can slide things around. You can't slide too much around with film if you're dealing with dialogue because you want it to be synced up. But timing is something that you'll need to have a pretty good handle on if you're going to switch from music to audio post. So that is kind of the differences, some of the differences. There's a lot of differences. But I would say film and TV audio post-production is way more complicated than music. So generally the people who go from music to film are elite tier, like they are really on top of stuff. You obviously get people who are just starting out who don't, and they need to learn a lot. Actually, a lot of people that watch my channel are starting out. But just know that when you get above the beginner level in audio post, you really need to be on top of your game, and you need to understand a lot of advanced things to be successful and to be able to work with other people, not just be a one-man or one-woman band where you're doing everything, but start to work as part of a crew on a big movie, or work at a post house, or work with maybe like a producer, a film producer, TV producer consistently. Like you're going to have to delegate things, but you're also going to have to learn to be delegated to and be told and take notes. That's something that actually is universal, is thick skin. That is huge. There's a lot of, let me think of a polite way to put this, pansies out there who can't take notes. They cannot take a punch. They got no chin in the boxing world. You tell them, I don't know about that kick drum, or that dialogue sounds a little thin, and they just, oh, you have mortally injured me, sir. And they wilt, and they go and they do a snide social media post, or they go home and, you know, have like a bunch of drinks and go on a bender. Don't do that. You have to take notes. You have to take the punches. You know, grow a pair of ovaries or testicles and just take the notes and apply them and use that as your muscle building exercise for sharpening your skills. Because you are not going to come out here in either music or post and be God's gift to the industry. You're going to have a lot of learning to do. Even doing it as long as I have, you take notes, and they're going to be some nasty ones, and you just have to take them, apply them, and be humble, basically. That's what it amounts to. If you get to the point where you are not taking notes, you're probably not watching these YouTube videos. You probably have a $10 million mansion somewhere. So to get to that level, you have to take years and years of abuse. So grow some thick skin, which kind of ties into mental health, and we'll get to that. So this is probably a good kind of midway point. I'll go back through some comments here. Let's see. JFK Production says film is definitely more subtle and precise. Those are good adjectives for it. It's more subtle, more precise. There's less of like you tipping your hand like, look at this cool mix thing I did, and more of like, how can I support the story and support the actors? Film is more like classical music. Another great analogy. It is. It's like, yeah, classical music. If you're mixing classical music, you know, you might be mixing just a stereo pair or a decatree or something. And so it's really just about carving a little bit and a little bit of dynamics and just letting stuff play. TJ says, on the contrary, audio post engineer wouldn't know how to tap tempo in Pro Tools. Yeah, I don't think I know how to do tap tempo in Pro Tools. That's a good point. Rely on timecode heavily. That's another thing in the film biz because of multiple cameras and audio sources. Timecode is a thing that, I'll put that on here, timecode. It used to be in music, you had to know timecode and you had to know MIDI machine control and machine control and all that stuff because of things like MPCs. I was an MPC guy. I had an MPC 2000, MPC 2500, MPC 4000, 5000, outboard gear. Like when I was trying to produce hip hop, it was all about the station and having my stuff set up to make beats. And so I would slave that stuff to Pro Tools or make Pro Tools slave to that. And that's how I would track my beats out. I would do like 8 direct outputs on the MPC, and you could track out the drums and then the samples separately. So those have gone away. People are using Machine and Ableton now for that. So yeah, it used to be timecode was both, but not anymore. Okay, other questions, comments. Noob question, as I've done very minimal music mixing, I've heard that sidechaining is used in hip-hop mixes. It is, and it's something I have used in a film context. I mean, there's some cool examples, like if you have a heartbeat, anything you have that's rhythmic, a heartbeat, for example, you can use to sidechain other things. You can use the dialogue bus to sidechain the music. So the dialogue feeding a compressor, you know, the dialogue hits the compressor and it dips the music so that it kind of mixes for you. I've got a video on that. I don't really like doing that because it's not very artistic, and a machine can easily do that. So, but yeah, there's some sidechain compression. The other thing is you might use sidechain compression if you're mixing score, if you have the stems. You know, you might want the synth bass to be ducked 3 dB by the kick or something like that. So House of Jen literally had one guy tell me fading was too hard when he was told footsteps needed to fade out at a scene change. He had me questioning myself because of how hard he argued. He was from music. Yeah, the music people, this is kind of a side rant, but let me make sure my mic is high enough for this, because I'm going to go in a little bit. Let's talk about composers mixing films or mixing web series. It's something that happens quite a bit. The composer will compose the music, and then probably the production doesn't have a re-recording mixer or an audio post person, and so the composer will say, you know what, I know how to mix. I'll just mix your show. I will mix everything. I'll do my music, and then I'll do the other stuff too. And then what happens is you can't hear any dialogue. You can't hear any sound effects because they're cranking the music up 20 dB because they're proud of their work. So that is something that I've done it on 3 features where I've scored them and also mixed them, and I was really like, I don't want to be that composer that is mixing the movie, because you're so proud of your music and all the hundreds of hours you've put into it that you want to highlight it, but that's not what's best for the movie, you know? Like, you have to take things moment by moment. So just kind of a side note, try to separate composing from mixing, like mixing a film, because you have too much invested. Really, it's best if the re-recording mixer for a film doesn't do any of the editorial. Like, if they're just a mixer, you're going to have a much better mix. What happens a lot is re-recording mixers on indie stuff will end up doing some of the sound editing, maybe sound effects or dialogue, or ADR or whatever. Like, they're going to, because of the low budget, have to wear multiple hats. But when it comes to those sections, they're going to highlight their work because they want it to be heard. The nice thing about a just professional re-recording mixer is they will sit back, listen to everything, and balance it based on what sounds best, not who's done the most work. So, sorry for the rant. Okay. Okay. Alfonso says, there's no rules, but it's more about understanding what the tool is for in case it lowers the track when another hits. Perfect for bass and hip-hop. Yeah, the big thing with like sidechain and hip-hop is bass. Everybody's all about the bass. So you have a beat from a producer, and they have multiple tuned 808s. They have a kick drum with a lot of bass. Maybe they even have a bass guitar, or there's a bass guitar in the sample, or a synth bass. So bass really needs to be monophonic for it to knock, as they say, for it to really, you know, get the trunk rattling. So the sidechain compression in hip-hop, and really EDM, anything with a lot of low end, is basically about getting the kick to cut through that stuff. And the way you do that is you make the other bass elements duck when the kick hits. So there's obvious stuff in dance music where like you get the douche, 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 you know, where the kick is literally ducking everything right after. But in hip-hop and rock music too, you can do this, where the kick actually ducks like the bass guitar, the melodic bass elements get ducked by the percussive bass elements so that they can all play together. The real way to fix that is an orchestration, and to have things separated out. A great example of this is Lil Wayne, Mrs. Officer, you know, where he's talking about the police officer, and great song, love it. Like, it's funny, but it's also, from a mixing standpoint, the kick in that song is pretty high. Like, it does have some bass, but it's just a quick little snap. And then the bass guitar is just like, it's so good. It's so nasty. It's like a snaky, funky bass line, and it's perfectly mixed. So yeah. Okay. When and how did you shift career path from music to post? I could talk about that. Conflict of interest. Yeah, that's the composer mixing the show. I feel like I'm doing a lot more automation mixing it of individual clips as opposed to the track level since I switched to audio post. Yes, and that's the thing, is film and TV, audio post-production we'll call it, tends to be more about individual moments in the timeline, like a series of events, because it's a story and you're going on a journey, versus a song, which is you want the vocals to be, like consistent through the whole thing. So there's a lot more consistency in music. Yeah, it looks like I just disconnected for a second, so I think we're back up. When you decided, this is Paul, the highlighted member today. When you decided the audio post was a direction. Okay, there's a couple of like personal questions, so I'll just take those one by one. Where was the other one? Okay, TJ said, when and how did you shift career path? I can show you on my IMDb. So if you go here, I haven't updated this for a long time, so there's way more stuff. I just don't really care anymore, like whatever. If you go down here to the beginning, 2007, 2008 was when I moved to LA. So I moved to LA, and for the first 3 years, 2008 to 2011, I was doing actually doing 3 different career paths. I was doing production sound, meaning on set, boom and mixer type stuff. I was doing audio post-production, and I was doing music. I had a music studio. So the one I ended up sticking with was audio post-production. It was the most successful. So for 3 years, I was trying to do all 3. I was trying to figure out, I was like 22 years old. I didn't really know what was going to be the way to go. And so around 2000, so what happened is it slowly shifted, like not through me trying, just it slowly, naturally shifted for me towards audio post, where you can see like 2008, I've got, 3 things. 2009, I've got maybe like 11 things. 2010, now we're starting to get into like the 20 projects. Still had some some production sound with boom operator, sound mixer stuff, production sound. But then 2011, by then it was like all just full, like feature films, a lot of feature films. So, and then it basically kept going until up here. And what happens is the higher up you get, the less projects you work on generally, because they're longer term projects. They, like for a TV show, I'll be working on it for like 3 months or something. For a feature, it might be a month or 2. So you get longer term projects that end up taking more of your time versus these little piecemeal projects that just kind of come and go. So that's when and how I shifted. It was just a natural thing. The music stuff ended up going away completely until maybe 2 years ago. A friend asked if I could score. No, it was like 3 or 4 years ago now. A friend asked if I could score a film because they knew I wanted to try to get back into composing. That was really my first thing. I was like, the hip hop, I liked hip hop, but I really wanted to do composing, not orchestral composing, but like more sample and urban type, R&B, hip hop, a little bit of rock, post-rock stuff, like real instruments, but smaller. So I got back into composing, and what I'll do is like maybe once or twice a year I'll compose for a feature. So that's kind of where my career ended up, is pretty much all audio post. I still mix a couple music projects a year. I still compose a couple, maybe once or twice a year, but a lot of it, 95% of it is just all audio post-production. So good question, a little personal, but hey, it's whatever. And then there was another personal one by Paul. When you decided audio post was the direction you wanted to take, what were the main actions you knew you had to take in order to succeed? Excellent question. All of these different paths we're talking about are based on your network and the people you know. So I knew when I was starting to like really focus in on audio post, where it kind of naturally shifted away from music, I knew I didn't want to be just bottom of the barrel guy, where I was like doing the cheapest, not able to pay my bill type of projects. So I just worked my butt off and tried to get as many credits as I could, as much experience as I could. Once I figured out that was the path I wanted to go, I was like, okay, I want to be really good at this. What that means, no shortcuts. You know, YouTube wasn't really a thing at the time for learning. It was still like Nyan Cat and Fail Army videos. So I've tried to find people that could either teach me or get me work, and just hound them within reason, you know, not trying to be annoying or like a pain in their butt, but just really keep it top of mind for stuff. And then I worked at a bunch of different studios. I worked at Margarita Mix. I worked at the smaller shop called Sammy Sound. I did some a couple other LA studios. There was one in Silver Lake that I worked at for a little bit. Anarchy Post. I feel like there was one more. Maybe I don't think I did anything with Juniper, but like there was a couple places where I was like, let me just dig in here and try to get on their radar. And yeah, so it was really about getting out there, talking to people, and getting a lot of credits, getting a lot of experience, so that you have the skills to back up what your mouth is saying, which is that you should hire me. So if you're just all talk and no action, your career is going to be pretty short and pretty difficult. So yeah, there's that. Let's see. Good question from Brandon Wells. Do you find score mixers mix their music differently versus, say, mixing classical jazz or even score album, but without the need to think about video? Oh, score mixers. Score mixers tend to mix pretty similar to just regular music mixers. They generally, so the good ones, you know, like you don't really have to touch the stems very much. You can just mix the composite of the stems. But there's also music mixers who just use too much LFE, too much bass. You know, it's the same problems you get with a music mixer, which is just it's too much of stuff. Too much compression, not enough dynamics, too much bass, too much stereo spread, maybe usually not too much reverb. Film music can generally have more reverb. So yeah, good question. Let's see. I saw a video game on your IMDb. I've worked on, I think, 2 video games. Actually, a couple video games. So one of them, Knights of the Old Republic, I was just like a voiceover editor, which was like editing 500 to 600 lines of voiceover per day. And then another one called Quantum Break, I mixed and supervised it had like a TV show built into the game. So we used like the video game assets for some of the sound design, and then we mixed it just like a regular TV show. Let's see here. People are saying the audio is cutting in and out. Sorry about that. I've seen that come up for some people, and I think it's a YouTube thing. I did have one disconnection, but yeah. I'm on fiber, so it is freezing cold here. That might have something to do with it. Suggestion for possible video. Okay. I haven't done too many games, so I don't think I can do a full stream on video games. Maddie Rojas says, I come from music production. Thanks to you, I got jobs on post. Now I'm working in several projects. Good. That's great. Okay. Rick Skellig says, hey, Thomas, just wanted to say your channel is great and I've learned so much. Thanks, man. That means a lot. Josh Moran, I've done freelance permalance for music, film, video games, but I always have to go back to a staff job and post your music because I can't keep up the work. Really good question. So that's probably, let's just go back to the outline here, and that kind of leads into this. So career paths available if you are going to audio post. You know, music, the odds of you getting hired as a music mixer at like Sunset Sound or a big studio are pretty low. So in music, you're probably going to be home studio Joe or small studio Joe, where you're the studio owner and it's a little space and you're trying to just get work in there to keep it going. With audio post, you're much more likely to get on staff at a place or just be a specialist, dialogue editor, sound effects editor, Foley artist, re-recording mixer is a popular one. After you get 10 years of experience, you could become a supervising sound editor. Wait till you get experience, though, before you start supervising people, because it's really hard to tell them what to do when you don't know. So you can also be a generalist in audio post. You could do the same thing I was talking about with the music studio, where you have a small studio and you're doing it all. I take on, I don't know, 5 or 6 projects a year where I do that. Maybe I hire out a little bit of help on stuff, but generally I'm doing most of the work. You can make a really good living doing that. Like, I've had years where I've made a lot of money doing that, but it's taken me a while to get to that point. So generalist is good, but it's going to limit your upward expansion, because a big movie is not going to hire a generalist. They want 20 specialists working on it. So permalancer is another option. Permalancer, did I spell that right? It's not really a real word. But in especially union stuff, you will work with certain studios and have a very strong relationship with them, but you're not staff. So they will have you on for different shows, projects, films, video games, whatever. But you're still a freelancer. Like, you're not an employee. You are going from project to project. So you're in deep with them, good relationship, very tight, very close relationship, but you're not staff. Staff is a dual-edged sword. Benefits of staff is steady work generally. Definitely you're going to get benefits. Downside with staff is it can actually be a little less pay, and you're not as mobile. Your schedule is very routine. You're not going to have those like weeks where you have nothing and you can just spend time with your family. So yeah, there's some downsides to that. But like the staff people I work with, especially like the assistant sound editors, they're just content to just, go to work every day, do the work. It can be a little stressful because they're juggling multiple projects because they are staff, but they're generally like cool with just being, the point man or point woman for a lot of different stuff that's moving around. And you can be staff, like you can be high-level staff, re-recording mixer or staff sound designer, but those are like usually reserved for the top dogs. So if you're watching this video, you've probably got a decade or two before you get to that. And then it's always possible to just have it as a side hustle. When I took the 3-year break from doing audio post, I still did a couple projects when I just needed extra money or it was somebody I liked working with. And that is a totally viable way. Like, it can just be a little bit of side money coming in. Nice thing about that is you can be very selective of the projects you take. You can take your time with them, and you're not having to put food on the table with, it's a little more than a hobby if it's a side hustle. You're not doing it for fun, but the pressure's off you to go out and get that bread, and put food on the table, pay your mortgage with your audio post. So those are kind of the different paths available. And specialists we talked about, if you want to go up, if you want to climb the ladder, specialize. Generalists don't generally climb the ladder unless they're going to be a supervising sound editor. Most SSEs specialize before they take on that role. Some of them specialize in dialogue, some of them specialize in sound effects, but they have a good overview of the post process and how things go. And a generalist isn't going to have the ability to become a permalancer or become staff, because when you try to get on these big studios, they want to know, are you a dialogue guy? Are you a sound effects gal? Are you a mixer? If you say, well, I do all of them, they're going to just say, thank you for your interest, and then they won't hire you. So streaming has impacted both audio post, really film market, and music market. The music market has been impacted by, if Spotify is paying you 0.00001 cent per thousand streams, how is that person going to pay for a recording studio? They're not. Similarly with film, you have all these streaming applications, and they've got a lot of content out there. They spent from like 2019 to 2022 just pumping out content, ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. You know, new specials, new films, new limited series, new anthologies coming out. Everybody was working gangbusters. 2022, writer's strike hit, actor's strike hit. They cut off the waterworks, they shut the machines down, and we're still in a lull from that, you know, almost 3 years later. So streaming is contracting with film and TV. There's still broadcast TV, but, you know, people are cutting the cord on that. So both markets are attracting a bit as far as making money doing it. So let me just go through real quick here some more comments. Is this a good break point? I've got about 13 minutes, so if you have comments or questions, now's your chance, because in about 8 minutes I'm going to sign off. Okay. Josh says, oh, I already read that one. Staff, oh, any advice for keeping it going? Okay. The permalance and freelance stuff is, the best thing I can say for keeping it going is figure out, you know, do some accounting homework, and I use QuickBooks so I can look at my profit and loss statement and cash flow and everything and figure out what your average is, you know, over a couple years, and then just be happy with it. Really, that kind of goes into the mental health part. Like, don't push yourself too hard as a permalancer to just grind away like, you know, like you're playing NBA 2K25 in my career and you're trying to get your guy up to 80. Like, just be happy with what you've got. I got a call here. This is probably spam, so I'm not going to look at that. So just be happy with where you're at. Be happy with the money you're making, and then scale your lifestyle to fit that, really. Like, that's kind of been my key for being happy is I could, if I really tried hard, I could probably make 200 grand a year, but my family would suffer, I would suffer. I definitely wouldn't be in very good physical shape. So just be happy with whatever, you know, you've got as your baseline. If you have a month that's over that, great. If you have a month that's less than that, don't worry about it. Just, you know, live your life a little bit. Enjoy the benefits of freedom and schedule, like taking 2 weeks off to go camping or go see a friend or spend time with your family on vacation. And, you know, the staff, if you want to move into staff, then you're just a chump, a working chump. Not bad, I shouldn't say chump. You're like a company man at that point. So you are expected to go Monday through Friday, do your job, and then the nice thing, I mean, even those guys though, after hours, they still have to answer emails. So it can be really stressful to be staff, and my hat's off to them for doing that. Like, it is just murderous on your stress level, and I commend anybody who can be staff at a post house, because it's really difficult, and they deserve more recognition for that. So keeping it going is just about your network and having jobs planned out a couple months in advance. Just like a construction, like a contractor, you know, they're scheduling stuff out 2-3 months ahead for concrete work, maybe 6 months. Or they have a new house build that's going to take them a year, but they're already 2 years out for the next round of house builds. So try to keep your schedule full pretty far out. But also, don't worry too much about it. You know, if things slow down, they're going to slow down. It's a very volatile, up and down job. So basically, don't worry about it. Communication skills are vital. Yeah, do a Zoom consult spotting session. I got one of those today. Be clear when what you're capable of when addressing questions, concerns, and what your timeline. Communication is super important, really, with both music and audio post. So if you're not a good communicator, you can work on those skills, build them up. Generally, a good communicator is going to beat a good mixer for client preference. Off topic, but how can one be a good supervising sound editor? The best supervising sound editors are very organized. They communicate, just like we talked about communication. They communicate to the clients and the team, schedule expectations. If somebody drops the ball on something or somebody makes a mistake, they are gracious in their correction of that mistake. They don't beat on them. They are also usually willing to fix stuff themselves. If somebody delivers tracks that aren't up to your standard, you can let them know, but you can also just quietly fix stuff in the background and then tell them afterwards, like, hey, I had to correct this stuff next time, try to keep an eye out for it. And then they really are kind of the link between the client's expectations and everybody who's working. So communicating that stuff and then delivering that stuff is pretty important. And just being a good supervisor, like, don't just lob emails from 100 miles away, like, get your hands dirty. Don't hound people, like, don't grind on them too hard, because this, mental health is really important, and you want to work with these people on your crew for a long time. So just be a good human being, basically. What's the most annoying trend for you in audio today? Oh, in movie trailers, they do this thing now where they take like a Kendrick Lamar song and they chop it up and put a bunch of drops and stuff in and do like dubstep. Well, it used to be dubstep wobbles under it, but just taking it's like somebody liked a hip hop song or a pop song and they're like, you know what? Let's destroy this song for our trailer. Let's cut it up. We got 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Let's just cut it up. We'll just take the pieces I like and add reverb at the end, and we'll have him do his rap, or we'll have them sing the part of the verse. We'll verb it out, chop it up. We'll have a line of dialogue from an MCU character right there. We'll do another part of the song. We'll have another one-liner, and then at the end we'll do a big hit, and we'll have the little echo trail of the last vocal. Like, that is just as bad as the lens flares were, and it's just as bad as like the "In a World," guy back in the early 2000s, late 90s. So all this stuff is going to be laughable. People think they're like cutting edge with this stuff, and 5 years later, we just look back and it's like, no, just keep it timeless. So yeah, okay. So keeping a foot in both worlds, totally possible to do. I've sort of done it a little bit, though. It's like a little skimpy, shriveled baby foot in the music, and then like a big, strong, giant foot in audio post. So it's possible, and it's nice because you can kind of bounce back and forth. When one slows down, you pick up the other. You can also do the side hustle thing, and then the pressure's kind of off. So that's totally possible. So yeah, a couple more questions. Akhilesh says, I'm starting out in the field. Do I need to be a musician to work as a sound engineer? No, you don't. It's actually probably better if you're not. There's so many audio post people who are like, let me just grab this guitar and put a little. No, don't. It's okay to not be a musician. It's actually probably better. Just work on your ear training and your audio chops, and you'll do very well. Okay, so mental health. So both of these jobs have a couple things that are bad for mental health. One is clients, stress. Another is just sedentariness. Yeah, that's how you spell it. Well, let's say clients, and then money, obviously. I think. Oh, and then there's the confidence thing. Okay, so clients can be kind of dangerous to your mental well-being. Try to stick with good clients that are nice and not jerks to you. Last year I had to fire my first client. There's clients where I've done the quiet quitting, where you just kind of like, hey, can you take this? Oh, I can't take that. Sorry, I'm a little too busy. Let them down easy. Those clients just end up drifting away from you and finding somebody else to beat on. But one client I had to go a little, not nuclear with, but like stand my ground because they were disrespecting me. It was the first time this has happened. Repeatedly disrespected me, and I just flat out quit. I told them, keep the money, don't pay me a dime. Here's all the work I've done on your project, like 2 weeks of work. Here you go, pro bono. It is worth it for me to be done with this, to just walk away. So, I lost a couple $1,000, but I didn't have to work on that anymore. So like, be careful who your clients are. If they're really abusive to you, just kick them to the curb. It's not worth it. Being sedentary, like, I built a sit-stand desk. I run, I do push-ups. I used to go to the gym and lift really heavy weights. But I was eating so much food. I would go bench heavy, squat heavy, do deadlifts. Like, I was like just going to the gym and pumping iron and getting big and hungry. I would eat like 4,000 calories a day, and I was like, this isn't good, man. I'm eating so much food. It's so expensive, and I'm paying the gym membership. Let me like get back to just a regular, normal baseline. So exercise is important. Getting outside is important. Having hobbies that don't involve sitting at a computer. Like, I go fishing, I do gold prospecting, stuff that gets me out in the sun, fresh air, vitamin D. And then don't forget to move. You have to move. We spend so much time in a chair. Like, you have to go for walks, go for runs, play with your kids, wrestle your wife. Like, do all the stuff that gets your body moving. The money side, like, there can be some really tough stretches. I had a tough stretch when I first moved to LA. I sold a Marshall Stack, my DJ turntables, which I'd had since college, just to pay rent, because I was starting out with my career. I didn't have rich parents. I didn't have no sugar mama to give me money. So it was literally like, I have nothing. I have to pay $1,400 in rent. I'm going to sell this gear. So money problems can really stress you out. And that's why, like, as a side hustle, it won't do that. You can have your office job, and then at night and on weekends, you can do a little audio post. So then it's like, this is nice. What's cool about that is you can build your skills up, make some money while you do it, extra money. And then when your skills are really good, then you can stop your day job. Once you start getting offers from places and you can actually hang with the big dogs, then you could actually just switch gears, and you don't have to deal with that dip where you just quit with nothing and you have no income for like 6 months. So money can be kind of a stressor. The other thing is, if you're freelance, taxes. Like, I remember the first year I made a bunch of money as a freelancer. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy a boat. I'm going to get me a new Jeep. And then I did my taxes. I was like, nope, I'm not going to do any of those things. I'm going to write a giant check to the IRS. So that can kind of kill that. Confidence is another thing. I've been doing this since 2007-ish, and I still have times where somebody shakes my confidence. Actually, the client I've fired shook my confidence. I've been doing this for so long. I know what I'm doing. I did my very best on their project, and they didn't like it. This is after 6 Golden Reel nominations now, 200 plus credits, multiple supervising sound editor, like probably 30 or so of those. Like, I have the experience. I know what I'm doing. And this guy was so disappointed in my work. I was like, do I know what I'm doing? Imposter syndrome. So it's real. It really happened. And then I took, time, and I was like, did I drop the ball in this? No. I did a great job. The problem with this is this person doesn't have experience. So their expectations are that I will take their project and make it sound like this way up here, and that's not possible. It's gonna sound better than it did. It's gonna sound good, but it's not gonna sound like the Avengers. Like, it's just not gonna happen. So confidence comes with experience. So put the time in, believe in yourself, and you'll build that confidence up. So yeah, so that's mental health. Okay, so let's see. Other questions I got. Oh, it's 9 o'clock. I gotta get going. Rick says, pretty sure they used that song just because the lyrics say Coliseum floor at one point. Yeah, exactly. It was a picture editor, the trailer editor, or producer or producer's friend was like, dude, this song says Coliseum floor. You guys have to use it. And then they just followed that, and yeah. So, but just the chopping up the popular song, and doing the little doom piano notes that ring out, like, it's just such a cliche. It's just like the lens flares. And light leaks. I don't like light leaks. Okay. Kevin says, I suffer horribly from imposter syndrome. Confidence is hard to come by. Yeah, it just comes with time. Fear of missing out of the limelight. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing this to get famous, you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons. The reason I do this is because I like the challenge of taking stuff to the next level and helping tell a story. So if I was doing it for accolades and stuff, I would be so disappointed because there's so much politics that goes into the awards. Like this year, I got nominated for a Golden Reel with my supervisor and I think the music editor on Lioness. So I'm very proud of that show. I did a great job. Danica did a great job. Everybody on that show killed it. But I liked that show. I liked working on it. So it wasn't like you know, the getting nominated for stuff is fine. But I've been nominated for Golden Reels. This will be the 6th time. I've never gone to the award ceremony. I've gone to just 2 or 3 film festivals. I've never been to the Emmys. I've never been to the Oscars. I don't have any interest in going to the Golden Reels. Like this year I might go just because I think there's a chance that Lioness will win, and I don't want to leave people, like I don't want to abandon people and not be there because that's kind of a jerk thing to do. Like I just don't like the limelight. I've made this audio post channel on YouTube to help people learn and not to be YouTube famous or whatever. Like it's not, you can tell by the half-assedness of my thumbnails and my, you know, roughshod approach to everything. It's just all just based on information. It's not based on doing goofy thumbnails and memes and stuff. So, okay. Okay. Paul says, the fastest way to sound like you know what you're doing is criticize others. That might be what your client was doing to some degree. Yeah, that could be it. Alexander Ed says, great stream. Good hearing everyone's thoughts and questions. Thanks for sharing your experience. That seems like a great segue to an outro. So thank you guys so much for joining me. It was interesting to kind of discuss the music to post pipeline. We touched on, you know, kind of how you would transition from a music career to an audio post career, some of the differences and similarities, different career paths that were available, and then mental health and some other topics. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. And a special thank you to channel members. I always say, like, you guys are the ones who are keeping this channel just chugging right along. So I'll just show kind of our Discord. It's been very busy the past couple of weeks. Like, there's been some awesome questions. We just diarrhea pooped all over Reddit, which was really fun, because like the audio post sub is when I got kicked out of it. I got kicked out of the audio post subreddit. I don't remember what for. It was probably some childish comment I made, but you have these super moderators who on Reddit who are just power tripping, and people are chiming in saying that they got kicked out for like saying hello. So it was really fun to just bash on Reddit for a little bit, because man, that site is just, it's rough. It's good to like reference for stuff, but participating in it, nope. I'm not going to participate in it. I'll look at things like, is this a good replacement starter for my truck? You know, and people will chime in, but like for real discussion, Reddit is not good. So we've got this Discord, and I'll try to be better about answering questions. I've been sick, been a little busy. I'm also talking about doing maybe one-on-one classes. So if my work slows down a little bit in the next couple weeks, I'll definitely look at how to do that. So thank you guys so much. Hope you have a great week. And if you have any ideas for videos, drop a comment. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Take care.